Hello everyone. In this video we are going to continue with trigonometric ratios, but we're going to talk about the inverse of the three trigonometric ratios we have talked about in the previous video. So in the previous video we talked about sin of theta, cosine of theta, and tangent of theta. We also discussed a rule that will help us to find the ratio of these ratios, and then we said that rule is so ka twa. So we know if you are looking for the ratio of sin theta, we're going to say S stands for sin, and then we have opposite over hypotenuse. So sin theta will be opposite over hypotenuse. And if you're looking for cos, C stands for cos, and then we have adjacent over hypotenuse. Cos theta will be adjacent over hypotenuse. And then if you want tangent, T stands for tangent, and then we have opposite over adjacent. So this is how we find the ratios of the following trig ratios. Let's say, for example, we have a triangle. Remember, if we have a triangle, we must be able to identify our sides. And let's assume that the side here is 5, and this is 4, and this is 3. So if we want to get the values of our side or the names of our side, we're going to say the side that is looking at 90 degrees is going to be the hypotenuse side. And the side that is looking at the reference angle is the opposite side. And then lastly, the side that is next to the angle, it is going to be the adjacent side. So if we want to determine the ratio of sin theta, we're going to say sin theta is opposite over hypotenuse. So what is our opposite? Our opposite will be 4 and the hypotenuse will be 5. So we'll substitute to say now the ratio of sin theta is opposite over hypotenuse, which is 4 over 5. And I will do the same thing for cos, to say cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. So this is going to be 3 over 5. And then lastly, for tangent of theta, we have opposite over adjacent. So it's going to be 4 over 3. So that is how we can easily determine the ratios of sine, cos, and tangent using SOHCAHTOA. So in this video, we are going to introduce the inverses of these ratios. So we have cosec theta, we have sec theta, and lastly we have cot theta. So if we talk about cosec theta is the inverse of sine. So it's going to be 1 over sine theta. So if we talk about sec theta is the inverse of cos. So it's going to be 1 over cos theta. And then lastly, cot will be the inverse of tangent. So it's going to be 1 over tangent. So if we see cosec, we know we are talking about the inverse of sine. And then if you see sec is the inverse of cos, then cot is the inverse of tangent. You need to know that. So if you know this, you're going to say that, okay, because this is the inverse of sine, that means the ratio will be what? We know the ratio of sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So because we are talking about the inverse, you're going to start to say this is going to be hypotenuse over opposite. It's going to be in the inverse direction because you are talking about the inverse of sine. So this will mean cosec theta will be hypotenuse over opposite. And if we talk about sec is the inverse of cos. So we're going to start with what? With the hypotenuse and divided by adjacent. So we're going to have hypotenuse divided by adjacent. And then lastly, if we have cot is the inverse of tangent. So we're going to start with adjacent and end with opposite. So this will be adjacent over opposite. So this is how you are going to find the inverse ratios of the following ratios. So let's say, for example, we have a triangle, and then in this triangle, we have the angle theta here, and they say now this side is 5, this side is 4, and this side is 3. So remember, you have to be able to label your triangle first to say this is going to be our hypotenuse side because it's looking at 90. This one is looking at the angle, so it's going to be opposite. And this one is next to the angle, so it's going to be adjacent. So now, if we want to determine the following ratios, cosec, sec, and cot, you must be able to first know these are the inverses of the following. Then after you identified that those are the inverses, you will be able to get these ratios here. So if you have the ratios, then you will be able to determine the following ratios. So we are going to say that cosec, it is going to be equivalent to what? Remember, cosec is hypotenuse over opposite. So we're going to say, okay, the hypotenuse is 5, the opposite is 4. So this will be 5 over 4. And if we talk about sec, sec will be what? We know that sec will be hypotenuse over adjacent. So we know the hypotenuse is 5 and the adjacent is 3. And then lastly, if we talk about the cot will be inverse of tan, so is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is 3, opposite is 4. So this will be 3 over 4. So that is how you would determine the inverse of the following ratios. Thank you very much.